Monks have preserved food without plastic for 1,000 years. The wax cloth method they use costs 3 ingredients, lasts years without restocking, and produces nothing for the trash. Saran wrap reached American consumers in 1953, and it arrived the way most replacements do, not with a warning, not with a debate, but with a convenience so obvious it made the older system look quaint. By the 60s it had become standard. By the 70s nobody thought about it at all. Households began restocking it every few weeks, automatically, indefinitely, and the market that grew around that habit never had any reason to shrink. What happened to the older system isn't complicated. Nobody recalled it. Nobody regulated it away. The knowledge never disappeared. It got set aside, and then it never came up again after the post-war decade closed. Monasteries had no reason to set anything aside. The wax cloth method worked, required nothing that needed restocking, and produced nothing that needed to go in the trash. And for communities built around permanence and the elimination of waste, that settled the argument before it started. None of that represents poverty or limitation. That is a system that never broke. The assumption built into plastic wrap is that food needs to be sealed, airtight, impermeable, entombed. The accurate principle is different. What food actually needs is a stable surface environment, protection from rapid moisture loss, airborne contaminants, and the temperature swings that accelerate breakdown. Waxed cloth delivers that through 3 specific mechanisms, and none of them are folklore. The first is vapor permeability. Beeswax isn't fully airtight, and that's the point. It allows a slow, controlled exchange of moisture vapor. Food sealed completely inside a humid environment sweats, develops surface condensation, and that condensation is the first step toward mold. Wax cloth lets food breathe at a rate slow enough to prevent desiccation without letting surfaces dry out or absorb ambient odors from the refrigerator. The second mechanism is hydrophobic surface protection. Wax repels liquid water, and a cut surface of cheese, a halved onion, a bowl of broth, all face the same threat from moisture loss at exposed surfaces. Pressed against those surfaces, the wax cloth creates a barrier that behaves like a rind, slowing water transmission without sealing the food off entirely. The third is microbial barrier function. Beeswax carries mild antimicrobial properties, documented in food science research on surface spoilage inhibition. It doesn't sterilize anything, but it slows surface colonization in ways that open air or damp fabric simply cannot match. That's surface chemistry, not tradition. The monastery method wasn't complicated, but every step of it was deliberate. The base cloth was tightly woven cotton or linen, not loose weave, not synthetic. Old worn shirts were prized for this because the fibers had softened through use and took wax without resistance. Too thick and the cloth cracks when folded cold. Too loose and the wax pools in uneven patches. Texture matters as much as material does. The wax mixture combined beeswax, pine resin, and a carrier oil, jojoba, coconut, or whatever the community had available. A ratio practitioners return to consistently is 4 parts beeswax to 1 part resin to 1 part oil. The resin adds tackiness, because without it the cloth won't grip a bowl rim, and the oil keeps the cloth pliable in cold temperatures so it doesn't shatter when you handle it. Together, those 3 ingredients produce something flexible, adhesive at body temperature, and water-resistant. Melting the mixture and brushing it onto the cloth came first, then pressing it with a warm iron between 2 sheets of parchment. The goal was even saturation. A well-saturated cloth turned slightly translucent, and any dry patches got re-waxed while heavy patches got smoothed. This wasn't rushed. Application is where warmth matters most. Press the cloth over a bowl rim and work your palms across the surface for 15 to 20 seconds. because the heat from your hand softens the wax just enough to grip the ceramic. The seal that results isn't airtight, but it's stable. It won't lift from a breeze or slip from a slight tilt. Care was simple. Cool water only, never hot, because heat melts the wax out. Hang to dry completely before reuse. Rewax when the tackiness fades. In communities built around eliminating waste, a tool that worked stayed in service for years. Raw meat is the real boundary here. Cross-contamination risks make disposable barriers the sensible call, and that line is real and worth respecting. But the honest question is how much of what comes off that roll in a given week never needed to be there in the first place. Here is where to start. Make one test cloth this week. 1/4 yard of cotton muslin, 2 ounces of beeswax, 1/2 ounce of pine resin, 1/2 ounce of coconut oil, melted together, brushed onto the cloth, pressed between parchment with a warm iron, cooled flat. Use it on one bowl in the refrigerator for 5 days and pay attention. Start with hard cheese because it's the ideal first application. Wax cloth doesn't trap condensation against the cut face the way sealed plastic does, and within a week the difference in surface texture will be visible. Replace bowl covers before anything else. Leftovers, soaking grains, resting dough represent low risk, high frequency, and no compromise. That's where the habit forms before you go any further. Keep the cloth on a hook rather than in a drawer, because a cloth buried somewhere gets sticky and frustrating, and visible means used. Hidden means you reach for the plastic roll by reflex. Rewax when the tackiness fades. Every few months, run it across a warm iron between parchment sheets and add a little fresh wax if the surface needs it. The cloth communicates what it needs clearly enough. A version of kitchen competence exists that doesn't depend on a factory restocking your shelves every few weeks. No special equipment, no homestead, no particular lifestyle required. Just an understanding of what the physics actually are and a habit built to work with them. Monasteries preserved food well not because of any holiness attributed to them, but because they understood the conditions food requires and built systems with what they had on hand. That knowledge was never complicated. It was only ever set aside. If you have made a wax cloth before, or remember a grandmother who used cloth covers in the kitchen, I want to hear about it. Tell me what state you're in, and whether that practice survived in your household or disappeared when the kitchen modernized. Because the regional patterns turn out to be more interesting than most people expect. Next week covers the exact monastery bread storage method that kept loaves fresh for 10 to 14 days without a bag, a box, or a refrigerator. 2 materials, 1 specific sequence, and the reason it works is the same reason every commercial bakery quietly walked away from it. Not because it failed, but because it couldn't be sold.